Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Physical Media. I am your host, John, and this is the weekly physical media show where we talk everything in the world of physical media and everything in the world of film. And we like to start the show off every single week with the news, and this week is no different. And Criterion announced their October releases, their spooky season releases, so let's start it off with that. They announced that I Walked with a Zombie / The Seventh Victim, produced by Val Lewton, 4K Blu-ray, is going to be coming out, so that's like a double feature. They also announced that Demon Pond will be getting a 4K Blu-ray release. Pandora's Box will also be getting a release, and this is a new 2K restoration. And then the big one that I saw a lot of people most excited about is Gumo coming to 4K Blu-ray. And that was Harmony Korine's 1997 directorial debut. I saw a lot of people most excited about this, and I actually have never seen any of these movies that Criterion will be releasing around spooky season, but I did read how excited a lot of people are. I talked to some people who said that they weren't going to be picking any of that up. I might pick up something if somebody out there tells me how good some of these movies are. Gumo is probably the one I'm most interested in checking out, so I might eventually grab that, but I don't know if any of these will be day one purchase for me personally, but I would love to know from you guys, what do you guys think of Criterion's October spooky season announcements? That means we're going to be getting our Shout and Scream Factory stuff announced pretty damn soon. We might even get it this Monday, who the hell knows, but either way, that stuff is going to be awesome. But that wasn't the only stuff announced this week. We also got announced that Brian De Palma's 1984 film Body Double will be getting a 4K Blu-ray release courtesy of Sony, so I'm sure that is going to look beautiful. And Body Double is a great Brian De Palma film. That's one of his more grittier horror films. It's a great horror film from the 1980s. I'm definitely going to be grabbing that day one. That is a absolute must-own for spooky season. So I'm really excited about that. Another 4K steelbook that got announced that will be coming out in September as well is Wind River. This is directed by Tyler Sheridan, the guy who gave us Yellowstone and also gave us Hell or High Water. And Wind River does feel very tonally similar to Hell or High Water, which already has a 4K Blu-ray release. This is one of those Lionsgate steelbooks, and I can't wait for it. Wind River stars Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner. You know, we get Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch from the MCU teaming up in this movie. It's a great thriller. I just really love this movie. The only thing with this movie that I'm a little upset about it coming out in September around spooky season, this is the perfect movie to watch in the dead of January. I mean, everything is covered in snow. It just feels cold while watching the movie, and that's something I absolutely love. This movie also features a cameo performance from Jon Bernthal in it, very similar to his performance in Hell or High Water. So Tyler Sheridan just had a vision of what he thinks Jon Bernthal would be perfect at, because he plays similar roles in both of those movies. And Wind River is one you guys absolutely have to grab. 4K steelbook. I'm sure this movie will look beautiful in 4K. I've only seen this on streaming, and it actually looked really good on that, so I cannot wait. I've only seen the movie twice, so this will be the third time I see it. I'll definitely be grabbing that on day one. And we also got confirmation that Columbia Classics Volume 5 is coming this September. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, so if you guys were hoping that was going to get officially announced, it is coming. I might grab that for a day one review. It depends how shop pay is for that through the Atomic Movie Store. That's usually how I've been buying movies lately, is through the Atomic Movie Store, because you can use shop pay, and man, that is a lifesaver if you're a 4K collector out there. If you're not using shop pay or Affirm. Now, I only use shop pay because that actually doesn't run your credit. You guys could just use that no matter what your credit is, as long as you're able to pay it back. But man, splitting it up into 4 installments definitely does save you guys a lot of money, or at least it's less noticeable leaving your account. And, you know, for people out there, working class people, it's definitely very helpful, especially if you're a collector and you don't want your wife to get mad at you, like my wife likes to get mad at me, because, you know, 4K Blu-rays are just coming in all the time. Speaking of which, I guess I should show you guys this now, because it's big. It's a big topic that we're going to have to discuss later in the week, and that's that Jaws 3 and Jaws the Revenge are coming out on 4K Blu-ray this upcoming Tuesday. It's Thursday right now when I'm filming this, before Tuesday, so I just got these in. I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time on that, but you'll see my 4K Blu-ray review for Jaws 3 and Jaws the Revenge next week, along with my 4K Blu-ray review for Risky Business, and then, of course, the Let's Talk review show, what do you guys think about that? Have you guys enjoyed the Let's Talk review show, where I put a bunch of reviews into one video? That's where you guys will see my Twisters review and the reviews I do for Kevin Kruger's movies, which I'm loving that as well. Getting to check out some new movies, and we'll also have our director's reviews this upcoming week, so that'll be fun as well. But man, we're getting spoiled with 4K Blu-rays lately. We're really getting into the season of 4K. I'm really looking forward to it. And just to keep getting all of these big announcements, I'm loving it. You know, I saw a lot of people talking this week about movies coming to 8K, and a lot of us have agreed that the last physical format probably will be 4K Blu-ray now. If 8K comes around, I'll probably get FOMO and have to pick it up, but I really hope that 4K Blu-ray is the end, just because I cannot afford for those to upgrade my collection again. Every time a movie comes out that I already have on Blu-ray, you know, I get that FOMO where I have to go out and grab it on 4K Blu-ray just because I know it's the best quality, you know. But certain movies, it really isn't necessarily worth the upgrade. We talked about Anchorman, that 4K Blu-ray, definitely not really worth the upgrade unless you really desperately want that visual upgrade. Same thing with South Park on 4K Blu-ray. Not really necessarily worth that upgrade because all you're getting is a visual upgrade. You know, it feels a little bit lazy if I'm being honest, but talking to some people, you know, with Skydance merging with Paramount coming up, I can understand why they're being a little bit lazy lately. They don't really have the funds to do much more than that. So I get it, but you're also charging people a lot of money, so it's very disappointing when you don't really put out a great release or you just make it look very nice and shiny. It's like a Lamborghini with a lawnmower engine. You know, it looks really nice, but it's not really that great. It's not going to go that fast, and that's pretty much what these 4K Blu-rays have been like lately from Paramount, despite the fact I am still happy that Anchorman did come to 4K Blu-ray because I personally didn't have the Rich Mahogany edition, but if you did, it's really not worth it. And that was everything that was basically announced this week in the world of physical media news, at least stuff that was confirmed. So let me know what you guys are most excited for that got announced this week in the world of physical media. Leave those comments in the comments section below, and I'm not going to waste any more of your time because we got a lot of questions this week, so it's time to dive right into the Q&A portion of this week's show. And last week, Mr. Smelly Potato sent me a question to rank a bunch of horror movies that came out in the year 2024, and those movies were Night Swim, Immaculate, Imaginary, The First Omen, Abigail, Sting, Tarot, Strangers Chapter 1, The Watchers, The Exorcism, and Maxine. And I was able to check out a bunch of these, but there was still a bunch I haven't seen, like Imaginary. You, for some reason, can't even stream that yet, even though I think it came out really early in the year. I haven't checked out Strangers Chapter 1 because that's $19 to rent. Tarot, I also didn't check out yet. The Exorcism, I couldn't. And same thing with The Watchers. They were $18.99 to rent. But everything else I've seen, so to rank the ones that I have seen, the worst of these was definitely Night Swim. Unfortunately, Night Swim was just, you know, it was very generic. And some of that dialogue, and despite the fact I love Wyatt Russell, I mean, it's just a very silly movie in general about a haunted swimming pool. Yes, there is more to that. The guy, Wyatt Russell, you know, he has MS, and the pool's got healing powers because the water itself comes from a spring nearby. And, you know, of course, then it's got like a parasite. It's got a demon in there, and, you know, that just leads to a lot of horror shenanigans. But really, it was the dialogue that kind of annoyed me because it felt very forced. It felt poorly written. Even though this movie did have some pretty decent jump scares, some of them are very cheap, but it still had some decent one, so I can't say the movie was an out-and-out failure, but I definitely didn't love it. And just above that, I'll put Sting, despite the fact I did enjoy Sting. I thought Sting was a pretty good creature feature, and I enjoyed the divorce element of this. I guess it was a divorce because the main girl, you know, she has a stepfather who she has a good relationship with. He's a comic book drawer, and, you know, she really has an affection for that as well, but she still feels very lonely, and she ends up getting a spider that is just growing at a rapid rate, and, you know, it leads to some killing, and this, again, feels like a very winter horror movie as well, which you should definitely watch in, like, January, February. Not a summer horror movie, but it did have its moments. I would say that this one is no harm, no foul. It's not the greatest movie I've ever saw, but I definitely did enjoy that. And then above that, I'll put Immaculate. This is that Sydney Sweeney movie, very similar to The First Omen, which we'll talk about in a second. And I did the double feature. I watched Immaculate, then I watched The First Omen, so I did the Nun double feature. They have very similar plots. In this movie, Sydney Sweeney, you know, she goes to Rome. She's going to be a nun now. She's going to take her vows. But what do you know? She gets pregnant. The Immaculate Conception, that's what the movie is dealing with. Of course, there's more to it. They do a little bit of digging, and, you know, of course, we expect a little bit more to that. And with this movie, for me, it just felt very generic. I thought Sydney Sweeney was great in it. the best part about this movie is the third act, because they go for it. In the very end of this movie, they really go for it. I mean, some shocking stuff, and Sydney Sweeney clearly was down to do anything, and I thought the end of this movie was the best part, which is funny, because I was watching the movie, and Fate's like, are you enjoying this? I was like, no, not really. I thought I was going to like it a little bit more, and she's like, so why don't you turn it off? I said, I don't turn movies off, because at the end, it could end up being redeemed, and I would say that definitely the ending of this movie probably redeems it overall, just because it's shocking, and to see Sydney Sweeney actually do that, I appreciated the end of this movie, which brings us to The First Omen. The First Omen, a prequel to the original Omen, so I knew how this movie was going to end. There was no surprises there, but the journey there, it was pretty good. There was still some stuff where I felt like, you know, it feels just like another generic 2024 horror film, 2023 horror film where, you know, it's hitting those beats. But I think with this movie that helped it stand out was the beautiful cinematography. It feels a lot like the original Richard Donner Omen film. You know, maybe not the score doesn't really live up to it, the acting doesn't live up to the original one, but we know where the journey is, and I can honestly say that the journey there was pretty good, although I don't think there were any surprises in this movie, but I thought it was at least pretty well done. And then the second best of these films, and I love this movie, and that was Abigail. This is from the same guys who got us Ready or Not, and then Scream 5 or 6, so they have a certain tone that they know how to hit, really combining comedy and horror. They also light their movies the same way. I really do appreciate the warm lighting that they do in a lot of their movies. This movie feels very similar to Ready or Not, so if you guys liked Ready or Not that came out a few years ago, you'll absolutely love Abigail. I was one of those people. Do not watch the trailer of this movie. Just watch the movie Abigail, because you'll be surprised at what the movie is actually about. The trailer, unfortunately, gives the entire movie away, so do not watch the trailer. Luckily for me, I didn't watch the trailer until after the movie, which is what I try and do, and Abigail, it's really a fantastic, well-made, it's a lot of fun, this movie, so you'll definitely really enjoy Abigail. And then, of course, at number one has been my favorite movie of 2024, and that's Maxine. Maxine, I think, is one of those movies that's going to stick with me. I imagine it will probably end up in my top 10 list of 2024 once the year finally finishes up. But still, Maxine is fantastic. If you guys haven't seen it, it's in theaters right now. Maya Goth is great. This is the best way to end the Ty West trilogy of movies. X, Pearl, and now Maxine. All movies, all of them feel different from each other, but yet they have that connecting tissue. Of course, Mia Goth or Maya Goth is amazing in all three of those movies. It's really her and Ty West trilogy, and they nailed it. Hey, Maya Goth was even a producer on this, and Ty West, you know, he produced, wrote, directed, and even edited the movie. So if you haven't seen Maxine, you'll have a blast with that. So that was a great question, Mr. Smelly Potato. Sorry I haven't seen all of those, even though I've heard that, like, Strangers Chapter 1 is really bad, but I'll check it out eventually. Same thing with Tarot. I'll check that out eventually. I really wanted to check out The Watchers, and that was really unfortunate that I actually couldn't check that one out. But that was a great question, buddy. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And we'll bang through a couple Sprazy 110 questions, because he sent in a bunch of short questions, and I appreciate this. You know, we get through them pretty quick, and they're always something fun for me to talk about. Like, what boutique label do you think looks best on your shelf? And I'll go either Criterion or Kino Lorber. Like I said, I actually appreciate what Kino Lorber does with their 4K Blu-ray releases, and how, you know, they're very uniform. The black label on the side, the Kino Lorber logo, and then just the font to match whatever the movie is, and that is it. Really do appreciate that. I know it's a little bit boring to some people, but still, I like the uniformity of it all, and I really do appreciate them giving us the original movie poster on the front. You know, it just helps it to stick out. You know, you can explain, hey, this is what Kino Lorber does. They keep classic films alive. Look at these beautiful 4K Blu-rays. Same thing with the Criterion Collection. They do a little bit more artistic work with them. You know, they have custom sleeves, but they still carry that same, like, base design with the number on the spine, the Criterion logo, you know, that, like, squared off look to it where the colors are mismatched a little bit. Absolutely love what Criterion does, so those would be the two that I would say definitely stand out the most to me on my shelf, just because I like things that look uniform. Now, Scream Factory does something similar, but not to the level that I think that Criterion or Kino Lorber do. And then Sprazy asked, what was my favorite food? Now, for people who've been watching the channel for a long time, you guys might think this is pretty silly, but my favorite food it's really Taco Bell. I love Taco Bell. I've always loved Taco Bell since I was a young child. I cherish the whole menu. I never get bored of the restaurant. Now, if you want me to narrow it down to, like, one food, I would say that, like, my favorite foods are probably just a simple cheeseburger. I love a good cheeseburger. Not a big steak guy, believe it or not, and I work at a butcher shop, but I'm still not the biggest steak guy in the world. I'm coming around to it now. just because I'm working with some meat, but unfortunately, I've just never been the biggest steak guy. Give me a good burger, though. I also really love nachos. I'm a big nacho guy. I'll just go to a restaurant and I'll order nachos. I'm not the fanciest guy in the world, I like the cheap stuff. As weird as that is, I've just always been a fan of, me personally, I'm always a junk food guy. I can control myself around something salty, but someone brings out a cake or cupcakes, and unfortunately, they're going to be gone pretty damn fast. So that's just really how I work. I love cake. I love cookies. Obviously, if you guys look at me, I'm a little bit heavier. I enjoy a good meal. I enjoy my meals. That's one of the best lines in, what was that movie that came out last year, Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix? That's my favorite line in the movie, where she's like, "You're getting fat." And he's like, "I enjoy my meals." I could relate to that. So that's another great question, Sprazy110. And then the last thing he asked this week is, how often do I dust off my collection? Me personally, not too often. My wife Faith, she'll probably dust it off at least once a week. She dusts everything off. She keeps the house clean. She's great at that. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm a little bit of a slob. I try and be better about it, but I'm not the cleanest person in the world. And my wife Faith, she's a very clean person, so she obviously gets very mad at me. And she'll come in, she'll dust everything off. Like, all this, you got to really give credit to her. She's really good with that. She's definitely like somebody who takes care of everything. I pick up the slack in other places. The garbage is always at the curb, but her with the dusting and everything off, vacuuming, she's great with that. I have to give all the credit to her, because honestly, I'm not the best at that. So those were 3 great Sprazy110 questions. Thank you so much, buddy. I really do appreciate that. And the next question is from Dark Room Reviews. So make sure you guys are heading over to his YouTube channel and subscribing right now. He's growing, so make sure you guys go over there. Give him a subscribe. I know he'll really appreciate it. And he asked me, what are your plans, if any, for the future of the channel? Well, I think the channel is really finding its groove lately. We're putting out about 4 videos a week. We put out some reviews. We put out the Collector's Corner each month with me and Frank. We put out a video every 2 weeks, the Let's Talk podcast with me and David, aka Shamrock Balls, which are just some of my favorite videos to make. I just have so much fun talking with Shamrock, talking with Frank. I have so much fun with that. Then we have the new Let's Talk review show, which it seems like everybody is enjoying that. It allows me to do more reviews, because the hardest part for me is, doing as many reviews as I can and then separating them into videos. So if I can do more reviews in one video, I can get more out to you guys, because unfortunately, the thing I want most from this channel is for it to be a full-time job for me to just concentrate on movies and physical media. Now, in the world we live in, that's basically impossible. As much as I love being on YouTube, Google and YouTube, they don't pay that much, and I don't want to really go the sponsorship route. Like, I appreciate you guys always doing donations to me, and people like Kevin Kruger sending me movies to review, or everybody who's in the memberships. All that stuff helps me to keep the channel going. I buy all my movies. That way I don't feel like I have to, say certain things because the studio won't give it to me. I feel like, me buying them myself, I'm not locked down to anything. And I would like to keep it that way, where you guys help me fund the channel, or I fund the channel myself, or through YouTube and Google. That way I don't ever have to, go that route, the corporate route, because that's one thing I never really wanted to do with this channel. Is make it I want to be able to feel free to give you guys my views and not have to feel like, oh, I'm gonna piss off a studio or nothing. If I feel like the studio's being lazy, I want to have that right to actually call them out on being lazy, and not feel guilty about like a PR person being like, we sent you the review copy. I thought you'd appreciate that. I would appreciate it, but I'm also not going to say something that I feel like is a lie. So that's one thing that, I want the channel to just be able to keep going. That's all I want. I don't mind working at my regular job. Right now, I kind of mind a little bit working 60 hours a week there, but it does help the channel to keep going, and this is really where my passion is. So eventually, I would love for this to be a full-time gig. Is it going to happen? I don't know. But if it just stays the way it is with these 4 videos a week, I have no problem with that. As long as you guys have no problem with that, I really am enjoying it. I love doing this. Like I said, all my free time pretty much gets invested back into movies and into this channel, and that's really it. I don't really have time for anything else. I don't play video games really anymore. I watch NASCAR and football and, basketball, and that's really the only other hobbies I have at this moment. Hang out with my wife and dogs, and that's really it. Other than that, that's my passion, and I would love for my passion to become a full-time job. But if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's the way it goes sometimes. But that was a great question, Dark Room Reviews. Thank you so much, buddy. And this Kevin Kruger question is fantastic. And he wrote, how would you rank your Kino 4Ks in your collection? Now, he also asked another question. It's just, Kevin, I'm going to let you know right now. He asked me what my top 10 least favorite movies are. gonna need a week to think about that, so that'll be on next week's show. But when it comes to my Kino 4K Blu-rays, now there's going to be 3 in here that I own that you guys are not going to see, mainly because I haven't watched them myself yet. I just got Turbulence on 4K Blu-ray. I have Nostalgia, which I said I was going to review here on the channel. I haven't watched that yet. I have that on 4K Blu-ray. And then I have The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Matt reviewed that here on the channel. So I actually watched that on my own, but I didn't actually watch the 4K Blu-ray yet personally, so I don't want to include movies that I haven't checked out the 4K Blu-ray yet personally, even if I have them. So you won't see The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 on here. You won't see Nostalgia, and you won't see Turbulence. Although you'll see a review for Turbulence this week, because I'm excited to talk about that Ray Liotta 4K Blu-ray. But without further ado, I have 23 of these, so we're going to go through them a little bit faster than usual. At the bottom, I have Marathon Man. Now, this movie stars Dustin Hoffman. It's a great 1970s film. Not one of my favorites. Now, I'm not the biggest Dustin Hoffman fan. You guys have heard me talk about that. But this is a great movie. I really enjoy it. I know people love this movie. Not the greatest 4K Blu-ray, though. And next up, we got High Plains Drifter. This is a classic Clint Eastwood movie. I definitely recommend checking out the movie. The 4K Blu-ray, it's pretty good. And this little 1990s Paul Newman movie, Nobody's Fool, also features Bruce Willis. This is just a lot of fun. A great winter movie you guys should check out. I reviewed this on the channel. I think I've actually reviewed all of these on the channel. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. The only reason I have this so low, despite the fact the movie's really good, the 4K Blu-ray compared to some of these others, not the best, but still a really good. Honestly, all the Kino 4K Blu-rays are at least pretty solid. Next up, a little-known Stephen King movie that features a great Max von Sydow performance in here, and we'll be talking about another great Max von Sydow performance in a little while, but this is him just chewing up scenery. He plays the devil, and I just love this movie. It's so much fun. Ed Harris is in this. I really wish more people would go back. I get it. It's a little bit cheesy, but if you enjoy some good cheese, Needful Things is one you should definitely check out. I just have so much fun with that. It's a good spooky season movie. Next up, Death Wish. Now, this is a great movie. Now, the only reason I have it this low is because if you've seen Death Wish 2, Vinegar Syndrome actually released that on 4K Blu-ray. That's a much better 4K Blu-ray than the original Death Wish, which is a shame because the original Death Wish is a great movie. Next up, the original Italian Job from the 1960s, starring Michael Caine. And this is a fantastic movie. If you ever heard of a cliffhanger, well, I'm pretty sure that got the name from this movie right here, because this movie legitimately ends on a cliffhanger. I'm not going to say more than that. Unless you've seen the movie, then you know what I'm talking about. It got a remake from Paramount. It's pretty good, but the original Italian Job is a classic. Next up, Kindergarten Cop. Now, this would be much higher, except for the fact that we got no extras on here, which is the most disappointing thing of all time, because I love Kindergarten Cop, and I'm a big extras junkie. We have a question about extras I'll do right after this, but to not put any extras on here, I mean, that's the problem with Kino Lorber. I know people complain about it. They're kind of at the mercy of what's available to them. They don't really put as much work in, like, on their end as far as the extras go. They only really put out whatever extras have been previously released, and unfortunately, there wasn't much for Kindergarten Cop, and they were not going to go out of their way for it, even though I just would have loved that. I mean, Ivan Reitman directed this movie in the 4K transfer. It's gorgeous. I mean, Kindergarten Cop never looks so good. It's just so disappointing that they kind of went the lazy route with that, but still, I cannot deny the transfer of that. I mean, you guys know how much I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. Next up, The Killing. This is a Stanley Kubrick movie, one of 2 Stanley Kubrick movies you'll see in this pile, and this is a great heist movie. So well done. More people should really go out of their way and check this one out. I know it doesn't rank in like the top 5 Stanley Kubrick movies, rightfully so, but still, what a well-made movie. Speaking of well-made movies, very much known for its classic opening scene, Touch of Evil, starring Orson Welles, one of Orson Welles' most well-known movies. He's great in the movie as well. I mean, what a bastard, but still, what a great movie. It'll always be known for its great opening. You know, it's one of those openings that influenced so many other movies, you know, The Oner, and it's done so well with a very shocking conclusion to that scene. Next up is Rob Reiner's Misery, and this was a great another great winter movie as well. And this, you know, Annie Wilkes, one of the best performances in film history, one of the scariest characters in film history, won Kathy Bates an Academy Award, but James Caan is also great in this movie. They had just, you know, they're the stars of this movie, and Kathy Bates, she's a little bit of a psycho. She's got some issues, and, you know, she finds the guy she's obsessed with, the writer of her favorite books, and when she finds out what happens to one of her favorite characters, well, she gets a little bit crazier than usual. Next up, Monster Squad. Now, I'm a little disappointed because it's the only one of my 4K Blu-rays that I actually don't have a slipcover for. It's my own fault. I bought it in a sale. It's what you would expect, but still, Monster Squad, great 4K Blu-ray. Very similar to The Goonies. You can clearly see that The Goonies influenced this movie in so many ways. It's a lot of fun. I would just say this is a little bit more childish compared to, like, The Goonies, and it's definitely noticeable. But if you have kids and you want to get them into horror movies, I really think you could do worse if you went with any other movie but Monster Squad. This is the perfect movie to get kids into horror movies. It's also a very well-made movie. Next up, Serpico. I mean, one of the greatest undercover cop movies of all time. A true story starring Al Pacino, directed by Sidney Lumet, one of the greatest directors of all time, especially through the 1970s. And this one, it's a tough watch because of what happens to this man. It's so rough watching somebody get just railroaded, doing nothing wrong, just trying to do the right thing. And what happens? Well, it ends up blowing up in his face in more ways than one. Definitely check out Serpico. Next up, with one of the most shocking endings in film history, The Usual Suspects. You have to see this movie at least once in your lifetime. And this is a great Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray. You know, the movie itself, it's kind of growing on me. I didn't love this movie the first time I saw it. I thought, you know, the ending would kind of spoil rewatches. But yet, it really doesn't. It's still, that ending is shocking, and it was spoofed greatly in Scary Movie. But still, definitely check out The Usual Suspects. Next up, one of my favorite 1980s movies, directed by William Friedkin, starring William Peterson. We're talking about To Live and Die in L.A. Also has a great Willem Dafoe movie. I love this movie. Now, I heard some complaints about the 4K Blu-ray. Is it the greatest 4K Blu-ray? No, it's not. You know, but this is a gritty-looking movie intentionally, and I think that a lot of people kind of lost that, and they were expecting something different. But for me, I thought this was a great 4K Blu-ray release. Definitely one that is worth your time and money, and it's definitely an improvement over the previously released Blu-ray. Which is funny, because I believe that was a Shout Select release, or at least a Shout Factory release. So I don't know how Kino even ended up with the rights to that. Next up is In Bruges. It's directed by Martin McDonagh, and this is a fantastic movie starring Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Ralph Fiennes, who's hysterical in this movie, and he's just an asshole as well. And I love it how later in the movie, Brendan Gleeson actually calls him a cunt. He's like, you know, you're a cunt. You're always going to be a cunt. I love that. Because he's fed up at this point. And Colin Farrell's great in this movie as well. He's an idiot, but he's great in this movie as well. I love this movie. I was just talking to somebody about maybe one day, when this came out, I was hoping we would get 7 Psychopaths on 4K Blu-ray, because that's a great movie as well. Another one that's just very cleverly written. You know, Martin McDonagh, he's written plays, and you can just see that when you watch his movies, because they're all so well written. Next up is Face Off. I love Face Off, one of the greatest 1990s action movies. I mean, Nicolas Cage was firing on all cylinders, but this is directed by John Woo, and I think this is the best American movie he ever made, because he made some great movies in the past before he came to America and made movies like Broken Arrow and Mission Impossible 2, but the best movie he ever made here in the States is Face Off. Him and John Travolta. Ah, man, it's such a funny movie. It's such a great movie. It's got all the John Woo-isms in it. You know, this came out around Con Air and The Rock. Nicolas Cage was becoming a star. I saw a lot of people this week talking about how Nicolas Cage isn't a great actor. Well, I mean, the guy has won an Academy Award, so anyone who said that Nicolas Cage is not a great actor, they're wrong. Has he appeared in some bad movies? Of course he has. He's appeared in plenty of bad movies, but the guy is always going for it. He never phones it in, and I appreciate some of the over-the-top stuff he does. Paths of Glory, another Stanley Kubrick movie. This is definitely one of my favorite anti-war films of all time. I would actually put this in my top 5 favorite Stanley Kubrick movies. This is actually very rewatchable, and if you want to see the horrors of war and why war is just so barbaric, watch this movie, and maybe a lot more people will understand why war is one of the stupidest things that human beings have ever come up with. And next up, Bad Lieutenant. You guys saw my review for this pretty recently, directed by Abel Ferrara, starring Harvey Keitel, and this is Harvey Keitel's best performance. It's a rough movie to watch. I completely understand why some people wouldn't like this movie, you know, especially if you like King of New York. It's a similar movie. It's a New York movie, but it's really a character study of somebody who is addicted to everything. Sex, gambling, drugs, and alcohol. You name it, he's addicted to it. He's a terrible person. He's got the power, though, to do it. It's just a great movie with a great performance, but I understand why a lot of people might not like this one. And next up, Steven Soderbergh's Out of Sight. I really love this movie. This is one of Jennifer Lopez's best performances. I would say it's her second best performance, only behind Selena, because I love Selena. But you also get a great George Clooney performances, plenty of great supporting characters, including Don Cheadle. Another great winter movie. A lot of it takes place in Detroit. Has one of my favorite scenes of all time. Just, you know, they're in a hotel, like diner or bar, and it's snowing outside. It looks so good, especially on 4K Blu-ray from Kino October. And now we're in the top 3, I would say the coup de grace of some of Kino October's 4K Blu-ray releases, in my opinion. One of my favorite movies, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This is definitely Jim Carrey's best dramatic performance, but Kate Winslet is good in this movie as well. If you're a Long Islander, I mean, you know, the train to Montauk, been on that train to Montauk, so I know all about it. It's another great winter movie. It's also just, it's a heartbreaking movie at that, you know, and it's also a sci-fi movie. It's got so many different elements to it. Really ends up being, and Charlie Kaufman wrote this movie. Charlie Kaufman, he makes some mind benders. If you ever see movies like Adaptation or, you know, Being John Malkovich, I'm Thinking of Leaving You. You know, Charlie Kaufman has a certain view, Schenectady, New York, which I absolutely love, and one day would like to review that 4K Blu-ray here on the channel. Well, he wrote this movie, and I think this is the best writing he ever did. And Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, they do an amazing job. At number 2, 3 Days of the Condor. This is one of the best 1970s movies, one of Robert Redford's best movies. And like I was saying about Max von Sydow earlier, he plays a hitman in this movie. One of my favorite, if not my favorite hitman in movie history, because the guy has a code. He's straight up honest with you about what the job he's doing. And I love that. You know, really adding some humanity to something that might seem very inhuman. So that's why I have to put that at number 2. And then number 1, I'm sure a lot of people know this already and have heard me talk about it. The Night of the Hunter, one of the best movies in the 1950s. This is now my second favorite black and white 4K Blu-ray of all time, only behind La Hind, which came out from the Criterion Collection earlier this year, but still one of the most beautiful looking movies that you'll ever see, especially if you love cinematography. A lot of stuff was taken from German Expressionism, but in the best way possible. It's just one of those great movies. Robert Mitchum is scary as hell in this movie, so definitely check out The Night of the Hunter if you've never seen that on 4K Blu-ray. So that was a great question, Kevin. Thank you so much, buddy. I really do appreciate that. And we'll answer your next question next week. And the next question is from Emmanuel, and he wrote, do you buy movies for the special features? Example, Captain America Civil War has a 2-part behind-the-scenes documentary, not available on Disney+. Well, I love extras, and yes, I will buy movies for the special features. You know, I don't necessarily buy the movies just for the special features. That's why when I do reviews here on the channel, I like to look at it for the total package. Now, I know plenty of people don't care about the special features, but for me, they're a really big deal. That was one of the things that really sold me on physical media, was the special features with the DVDs when we had all that stuff. I remember just watching the special features on like something that not many people even care about, like Scary Movie 3. I always ate that stuff up. I really enjoy a good making of documentary. I love getting down to the nitty gritty of filmmaking, what the producers thought, what the actors thought, what the writers thought, what the directors thought, how a movie gets made, how certain shots are done. I love that, and the special features unlocks all of that. And, you know, there's so many great making of documentaries out there, like the one for Blade Runner, or obviously the most famous one is probably Heart of Darkness, which you can get in the 4K Blu-ray release of Apocalypse Now, along with all 3 cuts of the movie. And I think I got that for like $20, and that was an absolute steal. So I always like knock a 4K Blu-ray, and I will take points off of a review if they half-ass the extras. You guys just heard me talking about Kino October and how Kindergarten Cop, you know, they lacked any extras, and that really pissed me off. And that's because, you know, when you buy something, like the first thing I like to do after I finish a movie is go right to the special features. If there's a making of documentary, that's the first thing I'll check out. Now, I'm not the biggest audio commentary track fan. I'll use them, like, if I need, like, a certain, like, if I want to find out some more information about a movie. Mainly, the only time I'll ever use an audio commentary track as to assist me in my reviews is when I do the shows with David, a.k.a. Shamrock Balls, because, I mean, David's showing up knowing everything about the movie, and I want to make sure I can, you know, match his expertise. So a commentary track is very helpful for that, but for me, it's the making of documentary. As long as that's on there, I'm also not the biggest deleted scenes guy, mainly because I feel like they're cut for a reason. But you get interviews, and you get a making of documentary, and I'm all in for it. And I always just hope they're on there. Is that the thing that drives me to buy a movie? No, it's a combination of things. You know, if we get plenty of new extras, that's why I always love the Criterion Collection. I'll admit they definitely slacking like everybody else is. I just don't know what it is. It feels like the physical media market's kind of moving away from the special features, and that really does bother me, because I love special features, and I hope that, that's something that's not permanent, and I hope that, more studios concentrate on it. I feel like they're not going to. I don't feel like they want to spend the money on getting new interviews. Now, some will. Every once in a while, we'll get something from like Shout Factory, especially Arrow Video, where they'll go out of their way and get you a bunch of new interviews, and I appreciate them for it, and I'll always compliment the studios whenever they do that. That's why I always get bothered, and I'll always call out a studio when they don't, because it's something, it's called special features because, they're special. It really is special for a lot of us who care about that. But again, I know that people who like the special features were in the minority. I know so many people who just buy the movie for the visuals and for the audio, and I respect that. I completely understand. Plenty of my closest friends who do collect physical media, that's what they do. They just want to see the visual and audio upgrade, and I totally respect that. But for me, the special features are a big part of it, and it seems like a lot of people out there also care about the special features, so I know I'm not alone in that, and I appreciate that. So that was a great question, Emmanuel. Thank you so much, buddy. And then the last question of this week, and this is going to be a fun one, is what's your top 10 favorite movie scenes of all time? I had to write these down, actually, and we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. At number 10, I have the scene in Network. This is the one that takes place in the conference room.
There is only one holistic system of systems.
And this is the scene where Ned Beatty is talking to Peter Finch. Peter Finch, who won an Academy Award for this movie after he had already died, just very similar to Heath Ledger. But Ned Beatty, he wasn't the biggest actor at this time, but he comes in for this one big scene and explains to, Peter Finch's character about what the world really is and how he's not really aware of it. We don't have countries in this anymore. We have corporations. He says things like Exxon. Those are the things that rule the world. And this message rings so true today that this scene has always gotten to me, how he just lays it out for him. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're trying to rile all these people up. Well, it's not going to work, because you know what really rules this planet? It's not these countries. It's all these corporations. And I truly believe that in the planet we live on right now, that couldn't be any more true. Corporations run this planet, and the way Ned Beatty acts in that movie, oh my god, just comes in with that monologue. And you'll see on here, a lot of my favorite scenes just feature great acting. At number 9, I got Poltergeist. Now, there's almost no dialogue in this scene, but Poltergeist, the one scene with the ghost on the stairs, where the camera slowly pans to it, the ghost is coming down, that Jerry Goldsmith score kicks in. I mean, this is really one of my favorite scenes in film history. Obviously, we're talking about it right now, but I mean, I'll get chills watching that scene to this very day, no matter how many times I have seen that scene in movies. At number 8, my favorite oneer of all time from Goodfellas, the Coca Cabana scene where, this is where Henry Hill, he takes Karen to the show and they go through the kitchen and everything. It's one shot, one continuous shot. It starts in the street all the way to when they put the table down right in front, really just taking us through what Karen is seeing for the first time. We're basically Karen in this scene, and we're seeing this entire lifestyle, and he just says, "Oh, what do you do?" And he's like, "I'm in construction." After all of that, he's tipping people. "Oh, what are you guys doing out here? Every time I see you, you're not working." We've all done that. I love that scene. I could have gone with one of the 2 oneers that were in Boogie Nights, but I clearly think that Boogie Nights was trying to pay homage to Goodfellas and what Martin Scorsese did with that. And even though I might like the one scene in Boogie Nights a little bit more where, what's his name, William H. Macy's character ends the scene by killing himself, which is a great oneer as well, but still, the best one is in Goodfellas. At number 7, I got the very ending last scene to It's a Wonderful Life. Most people know this as the scene where, "Hey, Daddy, when a bell rings, that means an angel gets his wings." And then, obviously James Stewart's like, "That's right. Yeah, that's right." That's a great scene. But I love everything leading up to that, how the whole town comes in. They're helping George out, giving him money, all leading up to his brother showing up.
To my big brother, George, the richest man in town.
Now, I've seen that probably like 50 times, and I will cry every single time. Literally, I'll be sitting there, not feeling a thing, and he'll say it, and I'll get a lump in my throat. That's just, that's the power of that scene. I mean, it's the power of It's a Wonderful Life, but the ending to that movie, mwah, perfect. At number 6, I got the end of Do the Right Thing. This is right when, Mookie goes and throws the garbage can through the window. Everything after that is just perfect. I mean, we were building to this, and they did not let us down. What an incredible scene. I could have gone with the very end of the movie, which is the next day, but I'll go with that entire riot scene leading up to the cops coming with, Radio Raheem. I guess I don't want to spoil Do the Right Thing, but everything after Mookie throws the trash can through the window. Number 5, this is the first time we used the time machine in Back to the Future. You know, this is when the time machine goes by them. Einstein's in there, and we have the, you know, the flames basically by their feet. I just thought that image is iconic. I love the entire scene. You guys just saw my podcast with me and David, aka Shamrock Balls, talking about Back to the Future. But this entire scene, basically all the way leading up to when Marty goes back to the past in 1955, everything from the time that they're in that parking lot at the Twin Pines Mall, that scene is just iconic to me. When we first see the DeLorean, when we first see Doc Brown, all that stuff is one of the greatest scenes in film history. You know, that's the first time we also hear the great Back to the Future theme. At number 4, I got the entire opening, the Normandy Beach scene from Saving Private Ryan. I mean, this might be a little cliche, and the rest of the movie, it's great, but the way we open with that Normandy Beach scene and how real it feels and how petrifying that must have been for those soldiers, my God. Not many movies are able to capture that on film, and it just shows you that Steven Spielberg is one of the greatest directors of all time, and this movie didn't win Best Picture. Shakespeare in Love. How many people talk about Shakespeare in Love in 2024? Not many, but I'm sure people still talk about Saving Private Ryan, and that Normandy Beach scene is going to come up for sure. Number 3, Pulp Fiction. You know, I'm going to have the scene right when we first enter the apartment, Jules and Vincent when they go in, and this is right when Jules is basically quoting scripture and why he's doing it, but the entire time you're just glued to Samuel L. Jackson and everything he's saying. Say what again? Say what one more time? I dare you. I double dare you. My God, until he eventually shoots him. This is when we get the big kahuna burger. I mean, all this stuff is iconic, and you guys have heard me talk about how much I love Pulp Fiction. This is when, you know, Vincent opens up the case and he's like, are we good? He's like, yeah, we good. I love that scene. Oh my God. Definitely one of my favorite scenes. Number 2, from my favorite movie of all time, Terminator. This is the police station scene. This is when the Terminator goes in. This is when the first time we hear I'll be back, when he comes crashing through and he's just lighting up all these police officers. I think they said that he killed 17 police officers that night, all the way leading to when Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese get away and we fade to black. That entire scene is incredible. And number 1, you guys heard me talk about this pretty recently, Paris, Texas. This is the two-way mirror scene. Oh my God, the dialogue in the scene, it'll break you down. Like I said, this scene alone raises the entire value of Paris, Texas for me. Paris, Texas is one of my favorite movies of all time. And this scene, my God, there's two-way mirror scenes in this movie. I'm talking about the second one. It'll break you down. It's incredible. It feels so realistic. That's why Paris, Texas is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's because of this scene right here. So that was a great question, 021OM6. You always ask great questions. I really appreciate it. You know, I have to really put my thought into those. And thank you to everybody who sent in questions this week. We have one more question that we'll get to next week from Kevin Kruger about my top 10 worst movies of all time. I got to put some thought into that one, and I'll come back next week with that. But again, thank you guys all so much for sending in questions for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's show, and if you did, don't forget that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, share this video if you could. And we also have channel membership, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer like John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, we also have a director's tier where you're going to find Frank from Frank's Media Reviews and Mr. Smelly Potato. And I want to thank all you guys so much for helping to keep this channel going. It really does mean the world to me. John Doe Juggalo and Frank from Frank's Media Reviews, they have great YouTube channels as well. So make sure you guys are going over there and subscribing to them and subscribing to all the other great physical media channels. We have a great community where it really has a lot of good people in it who definitely deserve your support. But if you got no money to throw our way, don't you worry about it at all. We just hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure you guys get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.